Good morning and welcome to this webinar where BE-terna Dynaway is doing a webinar on asset management with the headline of Achieving Maximum Efficiency. Just for you that hasn't met BE-terna before, we are one of the leading European providers of Microsoft Dynamics 365. We offer the full range of Dynamics 365 applications across ERP, CRM, analytics, and Power Platform. And we do that to drive digital transformation and automate business processes. My name is Jesper Højlund. I'm head of sales for BE-terna in Denmark. With me today, I have Thomas Krogh, senior consultant from Dynaway, and Mikkel Oldenborg, director of strategic partnerships. Mikkel, welcome to you, and welcome to you, Thomas. You would like to do a brief introduction to Dynaway.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jesper. Thank you for letting us talk on this webinar. Like Jesper mentioned, we're going to cover what is in Microsoft Asset Management, but first of all, I would like to give you a short introduction to Dynaway. The reason is that we are the company behind Microsoft Asset Management, which was sold to Microsoft in 2018 and can now be found as a standard part of D365. Dynaway is as an ISV, so an independent software vendor within the Microsoft ecosystem. We're owned by EG, which has approximately 1,700 employees. So we still operate as a separate business unit within EG. We still operate as an ISV, and we're not acquired by Microsoft. They bought a copy of the software. We still get some confusion about that. So in this webinar, the purpose is to focus on Microsoft Asset Management, but we do have some extensions that will help you to accelerate Microsoft Asset Management. So in the case that you have some gaps, we do offer some standard components that Thomas will also just enlighten briefly during the presentation. This is for a presentation of 45 minutes. Typically, it takes much longer. We have a 3-day training course to cover everything. So therefore, if there's something you see here that you would like to hear more about, then of course, let's connect afterwards. And I do know that Jesper has a call to action in case you want to hear more. So Thomas, that was the brief introduction from my side. I'll hand it over to you and you can take us safely through the product.
Thank you, Mikkel, and thank you for your time today. My agenda for today is to give you an introduction to asset management. What are the processes that are covered by asset management, and what is the value that it will add to your company using asset management within D365? We mainly work in these 3 major industries: food and beverage, manufacturing, and energy and natural resources, all different industries that heavily depend on the assets and that the assets are running, no downtime, so that we can produce our products. So those are some of our customers. But what does it mean to have a built-in, not bolted-on solution? Well, first of all, what is asset management? Asset management inside D365 will allow you to efficiently manage and carry out all tasks that are related to managing and servicing all types of physical assets. So that means that we have some master data inside D365, function locations where our assets is installed. We have an asset structure, the asset hierarchy. We can set up the use of spare parts, and we can build our own maintenance plans so that we are able to do corrective, preventive, predictive, reactive, and condition-based work orders. We can register our feedback so that we can do the follow-up afterwards. And why do we want to have a systematic approach to asset management? Well, I assume that you would all like to reduce your maintenance cost. You would like to extend the life of your asset. Maybe we need some help to improve availability and performance, and to find the right balance between our corrective and preventive work orders. When Microsoft bought our solution and made asset management as a part of the standard D365 finance operation, we are now able to offer the big picture of asset management within D365. In the past, We could acquire and retire our assets financially as a part of the fixed asset module. But now we are also able to manage and maintain those assets within D365. We have a multi-level asset structure. We have all the required information on the asset register. We can set up a list of approved spare parts. We can consume spare parts. And when we are maintaining our assets, of course, the system can handle breakdown maintenance, preventive maintenance. We can set up checklists for the work that we do. We have fault management for probability calculations when we do corrective work. We can execute our work orders, we can schedule the work, and we can follow up on it afterwards. All of that within D365 as a part of the standard offering from Microsoft. Because when we are built-in maintenance solutions inside D365, then we do not only support the maintenance processes, but we also have the full usage of all of the other modules inside D365. Of course, that's a huge advantage comparing to third-party maintenance solutions. We are able to create a purchase requisition directly from a work order. So if you need a third-party vendor to come in and fix one of your machines, then we can create the requisition. That requisition will go into the approval flow that you have defined. It will be turned into a purchase order, and afterwards we will be able to see the cost of it on our asset, on the location, on the work order within asset management. Of course, asset management is also supported by the inventory, handling spare parts. In asset management, we can set up a list of approved spare parts, but when we are consuming spare parts, we are consuming out of the inventory. And when you are creating work orders out in the future for your preventive work, the demand that you have on those work orders can also be a demand for the master plan, so that you can ensure that you have the spare parts when you need them for your work orders. On the financial side, asset management can help you with the financial dimensions. So that means that if you have a lot of rotatable equipments, that maybe today they will be installed over here, but tomorrow they will be installed in a different building. That could change the department, the cost center on the asset, so that when you track the cost, you have the right financial dimensions. You are also able to link the asset that you are maintaining to the fixed asset in finance, so that you can see the cost in maintenance as a lookup when you are working with the fixed asset in finance. On the production side, with asset management, you are able to link the asset that you are maintaining to the machine resource in production. That means that when you are scheduling work orders for work done by the maintenance team, the production lead or the production planner will be able to see that in production, because when you schedule a work order in asset management, it will automatically create a capacity reservation on the machine resource that you're using on your production orders. We can also take information from production orders and we can use that in asset management. That could be quantity produced or hours that you have posted against the production order. And we can use that as a part of the predictive setup in asset management that I will come back to. On the HR side, in HR is where we create our workers, but it is also in the HR module that you can set up skills and certificates. Different skills that are required to do different jobs. So asset management can set up a skill requirement, and then you will get a warning if the worker that you are trying to schedule the work to don't have the required skill to do the work, so that we can ensure that it's only the right people that are doing the right job also in asset management. And then finally, and that's very important to understand, asset management is built on top of the project module inside D365. So asset management requires the project module, and that's great because the project module is a well-used, well-tested module. When I started back in 98, we had the project module as a part of Axapta. And what we are able to do with asset management is that, let's say that you are doing some investment work. You have created some investment project, and some of that work will be done by the maintenance team. Then we can just track that as work orders, and it will automatically be registered against the investment project. We can also use project validations for category resource project validations. We do project postings and so on. So asset management is built on top of the project module, so we get all of that functionality and features as a part of asset management. So built in, not bolted on. What we can do in asset management is that you will be able to build your install base, your asset structure directly into D365. You can see an example of this here. This is the Microsoft demo data where we have a plant that are producing plastic parts. And you can see I have different function locations. On those locations, I have installed different assets, and those assets can have a sub-asset structure if you want. So that means that you are able to track your maintenance on any level within your asset structure, and you can follow up on the cost afterwards on a higher level if you want. And of course, it's important that we have all of the required information registered so that we have it when we are standing in front of the machine, in front of the equipment, doing the maintenance. If we look at the different processes that are handled with asset management, first of all, of course, we can do corrective maintenance. So if your operation part, the operators standing with the machines, the users of the equipment are creating a request, that request can be reviewed afterwards within the maintenance department, and we can approve it by turning the request into a work order. The requester can follow up on that afterwards inside D365 because there will be a link between the request and the work order. So when the worker closes the work, the request will automatically be updated. Of course, a request is not required for doing corrective work. If you have a technician that is walking around your plant, your site, noticing something is wrong, then of course we are able to create a corrective work order directly. But I also have some customers that wants to have that approval part of a request into a work order before we start to do the work. If we compare that to the process of preventive and predictive work orders, then of course we don't have a request. You don't want operators to request a work order every month for you to do a conveyor inspection. So instead, we have a setup of what is called maintenance plans. These maintenance plans can be built based on time, or they can be built on counters. So that means that if you track hours in use on your machines, then we can set up that we want to predict when to do the work instead of using the calendar to create the work orders. It can even be a combination like I have on my car at home, where I need to do service after 1 year or 20,000 kilometers. No matter if you have built it on time or counters, then you can assign those maintenance plans to either a location or to individual assets. And then asset management can generate a work order proposal out in the future. So that means that asset management do not only support creating work orders, but it can also help you with your strategic planning. I have customers that are creating work order proposals maybe 10 years out into the future to see what preventive work do we need to do out in the future. And then you can make a decision on when to turn those schedule lines, those work order proposals into work orders. Maybe you want to do that 6 to 8 weeks out into the future. So that means that we support both the strategic planning, where you can look years out into the future. We support the long-term planning where we have created the work orders. That will often depend on the lead time on your spare parts. And then we can also do some short-term scheduling down to the worker level, but I'll come back to that. So the work order proposal is that overview for you that you look at and you turn them into work orders. If you don't want to have that overview, if you just want to have a system that automatically create weekly inspections, and you don't want to have an overview of that before you see the work order, then of course you can set up the system to create those work orders automatically so that you don't have to spend time getting that overview. Asset management can also support a more condition-based, reactive setup for your work orders. If you have a sensor on your machines, in my example here, I have a boiler that can measure a temperature. And if that temperature is too high, then I want the system to create a work order so that we can go out and we can fix the issue. I also have a customer in Canada, that's a paper mill. And when they are drying the paper, they can measure the vibration on the paper. And if the vibration gets too high, then they can go out and they can fix the issue before the paper breaks and they have to stop the whole line. So for our condition-based work orders, we will set it up to react when we go above or below a certain value. Those counter values can be updated manually. They can be updated from a checklist if you go out and you do some preventive work, or they can be updated automatically from an IoT device, all depending on the quality of the data that you can deliver. And then we can react on that and we can automatically create a work order. So that also means that I could have a preventive work order. I need to do a monthly inspection. And then based on the feedback that I give on the checklist, I can automatically create follow-up work orders based on that checklist. But no matter how we are creating our work orders, then we need to execute them. Work order execution, that's what asset management is all about, executing work orders against our assets. No matter what type of work order it is, we can have different life cycles. That's completely up to you. I have tried to simplify it a little bit here in my presentation, where I say that at least we are creating the work orders, we are preparing the work, then we are executing it so that we can close it. But that is completely up to you, how many states that you want to have in your life cycle. A part of the preparation of a work order could be looking at the forecast. Do we have the parts we need? Do I need to create a direct purchase order for some spare parts so that we can fix the issue? Do I need to create a requisition so that I can get a subcontractor in to do the work? When I have all the parts I need, then I am ready to schedule the work. By scheduling, I mean that we are scheduling, assigning the work down to the worker level so that I want Thomas to do the work. And when you have scheduled the work order down to the worker level, then you can decide either to print out a work order report, and that piece of paper you can give to the worker. He can go out to the machine, he can put on his notes, take that paper back into the office and somebody can type it into the system, or you can use mobility. I would say that mobility is a requirement for all the customers I talk to at the moment. You want to be able to have all the information available with you when you're standing in front of the machine, not only the checklist, but also a full history of what has happened in the past. You want to see maybe a manual or attachments that could be relevant. And that's why you want to have all of that information on a mobile device so that you can complete the work and then you can go directly to the next work order. When you have executed the work, then it's important that we close off the work orders so that we can work smarter in the future. A part of closing a work order is to give feedback, updating a checklist, putting in a worker's remark on the work that you did, maybe updating a fault information if it was a corrective work order. But closing a work order is also to register your consumption. hours, labor cost, spare parts, maybe expenses against the work order so that we can follow up on that afterwards. As mentioned, Dynaway has a few add-ons. I will not go into details about those add-on products right now, only if you have some questions to them. We have some advanced functionality that has been built into the product, into D365. We have a contractor management module so that you can manage your contractors. We have a built-in safe work module so that you can handle your work permits, your tagouts, logouts, risk assessment within D365. Then we have a mobile client for work execution. We have a planning board for the scheduling, and we have built a data model for Power BI as a part of the Dynaway analytics. That was my 20-minute introduction to the product. If you have any questions, please put them into the chat box and I will follow up on that. But now I want to go into the product. So this is not only a webinar where I'm showing you the presentation. I also want to show you how it is built into D365. So let me see if we have any questions. Not right now.
We have one question, Thomas. How do you gather relevant process data from the asset to schedule the maintenance? Typically running time, counted cycles, thermal stress induced for a machine.
I will show that. So let me stop my presentation here and opening up Dynamics. I hope that you can all see my D365 now.
Yes.
This is the latest product version from Microsoft with the latest add-ons from Dynaway. So if you open up your menu at home, it might look a little different. I am set up as a system administrator. That's why I see all of the workspaces. But of course, asset management have some predefined security roles. We have one for the maintenance requester. They can only create a request. The maintenance worker that can execute a work order, update a work order, change the state of on a work order. Then we have a maintenance clerk that can also assign requisitions and POs to a work order and can have an overview of all of the setup. And then finally, we have the maintenance manager that has access to everything. If I go into the menu, then you can see that I have asset management built in, not bolted on. And here we have our menu structure. First of all, before we can start to track any operational data at all, then we need to have our assets in the system. I will just quickly show you the asset view here. This is a demo environment, so I have not only the data from Microsoft, we also have some other locations. But here I have a plastic plant where I am producing some plastic parts. You can see that I have different sub-locations. I have a raw material area where I have all of my silos. I have an extrusion lines. That's my production lines where I have different production lines. And I can, of course, drill into those production lines and I can link my production lines to my resources in production if I want. I also have some assets that will be driving around the whole plant. That could be my forklift. And if we go into the forklift and I could open up one of my forklifts from this structure, then on my forklift number 1, I have actually decided that I want to capture hours in use. So here you can see that different hours in use has been captured against my forklift. And I can use that information now when I create my work orders. This was just one type of measurement counters that I want to measure. Before we look at the maintenance plans, I just quickly want to show you how we can do it. Because as a part of asset management, you can set up different counter types. Those counter types could be hours in use. I can even have a counter type that I call production hours. And this one will be updated from production directly. I can also do that with my quantity, so that if you want to build your maintenance plans based on the quantity that you are producing, then I could update a counter that I call production quantity. It can also be a temperature. So you have to look at these counters as anything you want to measure, count, follow up on your assets. We can then update those manually. So if I go back to my forklift as I did before, I can put in a counter value manually. I could also have a work order. So if I open up my list of work orders here, then you can see that I have a work order where I am doing a monthly inspection of my forklift. That's work order number 160 here. If I open up this work order was created automatically based on a maintenance plan that we need to go out and we need to do a monthly inspection. A part of this monthly inspection is that I have a checklist. And on this checklist, I am reading my hour meters. So here I can put in what was the value when I go out and I do the inspection. Or I think I'm doing something else. I'm also reading the oil pressure. So that means that based on either the meters I can use for my predictive work or the oil pressure, if that is too low, I can automatically create a reactive work order. That can be updated from the checklist, or you can simply do it automatically. So inside Dynamics, there is an entity that you can use to populate counter values automatically. So just to summarize, when you have a list of your assets, at any level in this structure, I can update my counters, and then I can build different maintenance plans here. So that could be on my forklift, but if I open up my production lines, I go into one of my extrusion lines. Here I can have work that I track directly on the line level. And this line, if I open up my asset again, I can then link this directly to a resource in my production. So you can see here, I am now standing on the asset that I am maintaining, but I can link that directly into my machine resources. I can also link it directly to a fixed asset if I want, so that I can follow up on it from the fixed asset side of it. When I have linked this line, let's say to a machine in my production, then I can now automatically update my counters. So if I open up the counters for this machine, then I can update these counters directly from my production orders. And I can set that to be done every day, at the end of every day, every hour, all depend on how often you want to update it. Yes, that was answering that question, Jesper. I just quickly want to show one of the maintenance plans. So here, if you go into asset management and you go to your setup of your preventive plans, then you can have both maintenance plans or you can have maintenance rounds. A round is more where you're doing the same type of job on a group of assets. Then maybe you want to set that up as a round so that you get one work order with multiple lines with multiple jobs. If I open up my maintenance plans, I can have different plans. You can see the first one here. This is where I'm doing my air compressor inspections. I am doing annual, monthly, weekly inspections. I can set up the job that I am performing with different variants so that we can have different checklists based on the work that we do. I can set up how often we should do it with the interval. And I can even set up if I want to suppress the monthly when we do the annual. This is how simple it is to build these plans. Then I can assign it to my assets. And now the system can automatically inform me when we need to do some work on the air compressors. I could also have a maintenance plan based on counters. This is the one I have here, where I have a maintenance plan that if I reach above 150 Celsius on my boiler, then I want to automatically create a work order. So this is just some examples. As Mikkel mentioned in the beginning, I could spend 3 days talking about asset management. So this is just to give you some ideas about how the system can be used, how asset management can help you get more value out of your assets within the system, but also how we can integrate to the other modules. Jesper, was there any other questions, or should I just talk a little bit about work orders?
Yeah, for the moment, we don't have any further questions. If you sit out there and have a question, please go to the Q&A tab in the top right corner.
I also know that it is a lot of information that I'm giving you here. So if you have some questions afterwards, then we can follow up, and you can reach out to Jesper, and we can do some follow up.
I have a short follow up, Thomas, on the last question there. So does it mean that the runtime of a machine will come from the estimated route, or will it come from the shop floor control registered time consumed?
The way that it is built from Microsoft is that it is coming from the posted hours on your production orders. So that means that what you have spent, not what you expected.
Okay.
I would say that if we do it more based on the expected usage, for me that would be more like a time-based maintenance plans, where I can set up and say, well, based on how much I expect us to use this machine, this is how often I want to do the work. And that's why the counters is more the real information on how many hours have been posted from the shop floor, from the manufacturing, the execution part of it, if you have that link. So yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, when I look out here on the left, it's because I'm looking to see if you have any questions.
Yeah, no worries. I will read it out to you. There's one more coming here. Which tools do you provide to have the information visual to the manufacturing line for the mechanic that works with the work order?
Yeah, that's on the mobile execution. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Of course, you could give access to your technicians into D365. But as we all know, that D365 is maybe more built for a person sitting in finance than a people with greasy fingers in the maintenance department. And that's why we have built a mobile solution. So before I show you the mobile solution, I just quickly want to show you the list of work orders in here. So let's make a copy of this forklift inspection. Of course, normally I would never do that manually. I would expect that the system just create these work orders, but I want to have a completely new work order. So for now, I will just copy my monthly inspection and set it up that we want to do that here on Monday next week. So I will now create a new work order. That work order is now ready to be executed. I can look at the forecast on my work orders. I can see how many hours it will take to do the work. I can see the spare parts that we need. I can follow up if I have the parts that I need. And then if I go back to my work order, I could decide that I want to release it so that my maintenance planner can find the right technician to do the work. I can do some scheduling here within D365, so I can open up my work order and then I can dispatch it. And for now, I will just dispatch it for myself. So this is the most easy way just to push out a work order to a person. If you want to have a more graphical approach to that, that's where Dynaway has built a graphical planning board. So instead of dispatching it within D365, then you can see all the work that needs to be scheduled out here on the right side. I can have different teams. And then, of course, you can do your drag and drop of the work. You can split it if you need multiple people. And when you hit the save button, then the work orders will automatically appear on the mobile client. So back to the question, what tool can we provide for that technician who is standing in front of the machine? And that is a mobile client. Here I have the mobile client from Dynaway. We have built it as a web app. So that means that you can open it up on any terminal that can run an HTML5 browser. Right now, I'm just running it on my laptop and I'm trying to emulate and saying, how could it look like on an iPad? But of course, I could also try to emulate and say, what would it look like on my phone if I want? So here I could have a mobile phone. The menu will then be down here on the bottom side. I can go in and I can see what work has been scheduled for me. And if we drill down, then hopefully here you can see work order number 168. That was the monthly forklift inspection that I just scheduled for me. If I open up this work order that are set to be executed on Monday, then I have the full history on my forklift. I can open up the forklift. I can see different attachments, historical work orders. I can even go into a full event history to see what has happened. Let me just go back to the iPad so we get a little bit more information here. So I can see some history on what has happened in the past. I can collapse my sidebar if I want to have more information here. I can also see my counters. Those were the hours in use that we were looking at before. It will show me the values. It will show me the trend and so on. But if we go back to the work order, then from the mobile device, I can now start my work. I can put it in progress if I want. I can also start a timer if I want to have some help tracking the time that I'm spending. And now on my mobile device, I can see the checklist that I need to perform. This is where I had some checks to fix the interior, to check different things. I can track what is the hour meter showing right now. It's showing 8,240. So this is the tool that I would put in front of the technician to execute all of the work. I can also open up my notes. I can see the work description. I can put in my worker's remark. Because we are inside the browser, it will also work very well with the whole speech to text. So if I hit the microphone, then instead of having to type it in what I have done, we can use the speech to text converter that is built into the browser. It works quite well. On the mobile client, I can also, let me just close the notes again. I can also consume my spare parts. So I can see if I have done any registrations, if I have forecasted any parts that I need to pick up, if I have any approved spare parts on the list, also on the mobile client. So this is the tool that I would put in front of the technician so that he has all relevant information when he's standing with the machine.
That's
Any
also, yeah, sorry.
Any other things, Jesper?
Yeah, there's also a question. I think I can answer to that, but there's a question here. Is it possible to integrate work orders, directly on the shop floor module and separate these on technicians and operates? I can add to that saying that as a part of BE-terna, we have a discrete manufacturing package that consists up to 30 different add-ons. One of them is the enhancement of shop floor control. For the moment being, work orders as a part of asset management is not incorporated. We have incorporated quality orders and other things, but we are definitely open to add work orders to that as well. So we have as I said, a lot of enrichments for the shop floor already, and as a part of the group.
And because when you have that link between the asset that you are maintaining and the machine resource in production, then of course based on that capacity reservation, yes, but you would know exactly what information to show to them, because you have a direct link between the machine resource, the shop floor, and the work orders that you are, the work that you're doing inside asset management. We have that full traceability.
Thank you, Thomas. There's another question coming. Sorry for interrupting you all the time.
No,
Thomas,
that's perfect.
but it's good to have this dialogue with the participants here. How will you know what time is spent on a production order? Is this information entered manually, for example, by an operator? And I'm sure we're referring to the shop floor control execution or IoT.
That could be both. If you are tracking time spent on production orders inside shop floor, then you can take that automatically and update your counter on your asset. So that would require the following thing. First of all, it would require that my asset, let me just open up the asset, has a link to the machine resource. So that's the first thing that it would require. The second thing that it would require is that you have a counter. Let me just show you the counter here again. That you have a counter that is set up to track hours that you post on your production orders. That's the one I have here. And then the final thing that you have to do is that you have to run a periodic job that I have right here. Update my asset counters. So this one here, you can then say, I would like to update my counters back to this date, looking at production orders. But I also have customers that are not tracking time spent as a part of the shop floor inside D365. And if you don't track that, then instead of updating it from the production order, then you would update it from another system, a sensor, whatever it is that you have that can deliver that data. We have a customer in the US public bus transportation. They don't have production orders, but they track all kinds of information on each of the buses, and all of that information is automatically transferred into D365.
There's a question here related to your mobile platform.
Yeah.
If the mobile devices are capable of working offline.
Yes, I can just show you here. So I could emulate and say, well, now I will go into an area where I don't have any service. So then you can see that now I'm working offline, but I still can open up my checklist. I can still go in and I can fill out the checklist and say, how does my brakes respond? They work fine. The lights work fine. And I can put in my oil pressure. And then I can save the changes. I can still update my notes. I can still see some history on the asset. I can still open up attachments. So what will happen is that when you have scheduled work to a worker, all of that work, all of that information will automatically be synchronized to the device so you can work offline. But if you want to have more work offline, then you can create different tiles here in my list. And you can also set up that these tiles should be working offline. That could be that you are taking the boat out to an offshore wind farm to fix your wind turbines. And then you could synchronize all of that work that you have on all of these assets to your device so that you can work offline. So we do fully support offline capability. I think I have spent the 45 minutes. Jesper, are there any follow-up questions that we need to answer?
I think for the moment, you have answered all the questions. Thank you so much, Thomas.
But then I would like from my side to thank you all for participating in this webinar. Thank you for the questions. It's always nice to have this dialogue with you. And I'm sure that if you have additional questions or if you want to do follow-up, that you can reach out to BE-terna and to Jesper. I don't know, Jesper, if you have any follow-up final comments.
Yes, thank you so much for this very deep dive introduction to your solution, Thomas. As a follow up, I would like to offer you a free of charge asset management assessment. Together with Dynaway, we're happy to set up a call with you so that we could run through your current asset management processes and say, well, where would the candidates for optimization lie, and how can we help you moving forward? I also have one follow-up question here by email, Thomas and Mikkel. Is it possible to use this application as a standalone tool if other ERP solutions are being used?
I would say that we have some customers who did that. It would still require that you set up the project module. So that means that you cannot use asset management without the setup of the project module. Of course, we can do a minimum setup of that. But I would also say that where asset management really has the full value is when you start to implement it together with the other modules, so that you can create a purchase requisition directly from a work order, when you consume spare parts directly out of the inventory, when we can link directly into the shop floor. Over time, I've been working with this module for 15, 20 years. Of course, I have had some customers who decided to start up with asset management and then afterwards include the other modules. But it's not as easy as it sounds. It is possible, but I would always prefer to implement it as a part of a D365 implementation.
Okay. I agree. And all of the efforts that you put into setting up asset management, linking it through D365, of course, the advantage is that you get a very deep dive follow-up when you look at it from a BI perspective, because you know exactly what your costs are, who repaired it, where do I spend my money, where should I invest in new equipment. So that's something we didn't cover here, but of course there is a reason why we want everything to be interlinked.
And with those words, thank you so much for participating. Thank you to you, Mikkel and Thomas, for joining this webinar and doing a very nice presentation of asset management. Please go to BE-terna.com/insights for further information and future webinars, and we will send out this presentation via email later today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.